Hi guys, welcome back to Hex. Today we're going to show you how you can save thousands of pounds on a really good budget gaming computer, budget without compromise. So you might get something like this for thousands of pounds, or you could come to us and we'll hook you up with our Forge 1 computer for only $699. So let me show you more about it and let's build it. Okay, so here we have our components. We have the Vida Zephyr Biak edition. Not sure what Biak means. We have our T4 16GB of DDR4 RAM. We've got a 1TB Kingston drive, an A520M motherboard, a 5050 RTX, a 5500 AMD Ryzen 5, a 600 Cougar, and we have some software here as well that we'll install onto it. So let's get building this stuff and we'll see how it performs at the end. So we have our motherboard here. Let's get it opened and see how it looks. So it should be a small one anyway. Here's our cables, our I/O shield, which we'll remember to put on first in the case, some manuals and stuff like that. And here it is, the product itself. There we go. So one NVMe slot, two RAM slots, PCIe slot, and the CPU slot itself. So let's get building. So here's our T4 Vulcan Z, 16GB of RAM, so two 8GB sticks. So you need to be really careful with how you're putting RAM into a computer, okay? So these RAM sticks have little notches like you see here, and there's also a notch inside the RAM slot here. So you want to make sure that you're matching it up. So this way would be the wrong way. So you would switch it around and you'd pop it in so it corresponds to the correct way of putting it in. And when you hear a click, that's where the RAM is properly seated in the slot. So the same on this one as well. Popping it in one corner, both corners here, click, and that's the RAM in. So that's the RAM installed now. So now we can get on to installing the CPU. So our CPU of choice for today is an AMD Ryzen 5 5500, and it's an AM4 platform, so it's an older generation, but it's still powerful enough to run games at 1080 and 1440. So let's get installed. So we have the CPU and the sticker. Here we have the fan that it comes with. So this actually comes with a stock AMD cooler. And it's actually a pretty good cooler for these types of processors. It cools them very effectively. Also has pre-applied thermal paste at the back of it, so we don't have to worry about applying any thermal paste to it. Installing a CPU onto an AM4 board is quite simple actually. You just push this lever to the side, lift it up all the way. Be careful not to push this too hard or you might snap it. To pop the processor back into the socket, you want to identify where the golden triangle meets the triangle on the board. In this case, it's here. So you want to align this CPU like so. So you want to put it in really carefully, like this. And you want to kind of just move it a little bit just to make sure that it's sitting in snug. Once you've done that, you can then apply some pressure onto this and secure it back into place. And that's it. If there's a little resistance when you're pushing it down, don't worry about it. If it's sitting correctly, it won't damage it at all. So that's okay. Next thing that we'll do is we'll take away the stock brackets for the cooler so that we can install the genuine AMD cooler onto it. Also, just to go back about the RAM. So we've decided instead of buying one 16GB stick, we bought two 8s. Because if you put it in dual channel, it's more efficient and also faster. Okay, what we'll do now is we'll pop the cooler onto the motherboard. Just line it up with the holes on the motherboard, like so. So you don't want to go from this one to this one, or this one to this one. You just want to go across directly and do it little by little so that the pressure spreads equally across the CPU. Especially when you're applying thermal paste onto it, when it's not pre-applied, you want to do that so that the thermal paste spreads equally on top of the CPU, between the CPU and the cooler itself. You will know how much to tighten this because when you reach the limit, it will kind of give you resistance. That seems to be the cooler installed properly. Now there's a little cable coming from it. That is the power cable for the fan to actually work. So there will be a little plug on the motherboard, usually up the top, and it will say CPU fan. And that is a CPU fan, so you will just literally plug that in like so, and that's it. You can put the cable behind here if you want to keep it out of the way, make it nice and neat. But that is the cooler installed now. RAM's installed, CPU's installed. So the next thing that we'll install is our NVMe hard drive. Okay, the next step is installing the NVMe SSD drive. So you will see there's a slot here and it is ridged. So there's a ridge inside the slot. Make sure that matches the ridge on the actual chip itself. So you want to pop it in at an angle until it slots in, and that's it in. And then you want to get a screw. Some of these will have the screw provided. Some of these will have the screw provided with the motherboard. If you don't have a screw provided, you might need to buy one from the likes of Amazon. There's usually these little tiny screws like this, and it goes in here like so. Again, don't over tighten this, just so it feels nice and snug and secure. Like this, just a little extra, and that's it installed. Nice and simple. So this VIDA case is actually quite a nice case. It's a budget case, and it also comes with 4 fans included in it. So we've got the exhaust fan, and we've got 3 intake fans as well. So we're gonna open it up, get the glass panel taken off. We'll take all the panels off actually, so that we can get access to the back, the front, and the side. So what we have at the back here is our fan RGB controller with a remote, and we have the I/O cables that we will plug into the motherboard once it's installed. So let's get the motherboard put in here. Now the first thing I will do right now is install this I/O shield into the back of the computer here, because we will forget to do it later, and it's just an absolute nightmare where you have to basically take everything apart to put it back, to put it into its place. So it's very simple, bit of metal. Make sure you got it the right way up, and it just goes into the back here, and it clicks into place like this. Okay, the first impression of the actual case, it looks really easy to build in. It has a lot of cable access for the side and from the bottom as well. You've got a lot of points here that you can anchor your cable ties to as well, and a lot of possibilities in here. The first thing I noticed, however, is that when we put our motherboard in here, I noticed that it's actually sitting incorrectly with this standoff here. So depending on what motherboard you have, you need to make sure that all the standoffs are in the correct holes for mounting them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that standoff out, and we're going to put it in this hole here so that it matches the pattern on our motherboard. Okay, now we've got the standoff in the correct place, so we can now install this motherboard in here. Make sure that when you're if you're using a third-party cooler of any kind, make sure that if it has rear brackets for the back of the motherboard, you do that before you put it in. Some cases like this one have a square cutout. If you do make that mistake, you can do it from the rear, it's fine. But just make sure that you refer to your manufacturer instruction manual if you're indeed using a different cooler. But this one's fine, you don't have to worry about that in here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to screw this in and secure it nicely. When installing a motherboard, make sure there's no standoffs that aren't being used behind the motherboard, as it can create a short and it can just literally cremate your whole system. So make sure that any standoffs that aren't being used are taken out of the case chassis before you put the motherboard in, just to prevent any sort of damage being caused to your computer. Okay, so that's all of it screwed in now, so it's nice and secure. The next step that we'll really do is wire up all the components and insert the PSU inside here. Our power supply unit today is a Cougar 600 watt. It's a fairly decent brand for gaming computers, and it's quite reputable, so it's quite safe to use it. Some of these PSUs are a little bit unknown, and I wouldn't advise using those because, well, you don't know if it's just cheap stuff that's going to explode and literally cremate your computer to a dust. But these ones are okay. I've heard good stuff about them, so we're going to use that one. And it's quite budget friendly as well. So yeah, let's get this put in. So we're going to go ahead and put the power supply in first. And you do that by sort of sliding it in from the back here. And there we go. What we're going to do is we're going to just secure it first, and then we'll run the cables accordingly to all the components. So that's the power supply installed now, nice and secure. Now it's down to the cable management. As I got really impatient doing the power supply, I thought I'd open up the RTX 5050 box and see what it looks like inside. So when I opened the box, I got greeted with some stickers that we'll probably never use. The card itself was larger than I thought it was going to be, if I'm honest, but I like the look of it. It looked really sort of boxy, which is what I prefer, and the materials that it was made of looked really nice, and just a nice finish really, especially the top part of it right here with that sort of brushed aluminum. So I just popped it into the computer, and the next step was to just plug it in and secure it with some screws. Okay, the GPU is now secured in place with 2 screws, as you can see here. And now I just plug in the cable from the power supply unit, make sure it's sitting nice and snug, and that's it. So that's the current power supply situation, and what we'll do is we're not going to bore you with how I do it all. I'm just going to do it off camera quickly, and we'll just have a look at how the PC runs after that. Okay guys, the PC is now finally built and we can do the first startup of it. So let's press the button and hopefully this boots up. There we go. Look at that, nice and pretty. I actually really like the fans on this. The fans look really nice. And I like the effect of this one and the front ones actually, which I'll zoom in on. I'll actually do a close-up of it just now. It's like a 3D effect almost. You can see it looks like it's an infinite sort of tunnel of light inside it. It looks really nice. I like the light on the, it's minimal, but on the GPU it looks cool as well. There's not much else going in terms of RGB, but it looks really nice. And to be honest, let's just put the glass on it actually and see what it looks like with as a finished product. Okay, so that's the glass now installed. Let's peel the plastic, guys. Let's peel it. Oh yes, that was satisfying. That was really satisfying. So there is the budget PC with a 5050 RTX and AMD Ryzen 5500. So I thought I would just include some gameplay from this computer right after I've put it together. So this is Red Dead Redemption 2. We're on the highest settings right now in 1080p, and we're averaging something like 120 frames per second, which is really good for this kind of card. So as I say, max settings, DLSS on, frame generation on as well. The card has this option and it makes gameplay a lot smoother. Without frame generation you can expect 60 or 70 frames per second in this game, but why would you do that when you can have more frames, right? So as you can see, it is running really nicely, nice and smooth, and the quality of the game is lovely. It looks beautiful, nice reflections, and yeah, not a single problem at all. Here we have Call of Duty Warzone, and we have it here at 1080p on the highest settings as before, and frame generation on, DLSS on, everything set to highest, and again nice and smooth in this one, not a single bit of problem. We were getting about 110, 115 frames per second in this title here on those settings, so not a single bit of problem, and I'll let you watch and see how smooth it is.
Hunt down the enemy. Enemy UAV is online.
This one's here's a bit of a personal favourite. This is Mafia: The Old Country. It's recently just came out, and it is probably one of the most prettiest games I have seen, like, in the recent times. It is very demanding on hardware, but even here on, it's called Epic in graphics settings, is the highest setting is Epic, and I've made sure everything's swiped up to Epic, and DLSS is on and frame generation is on 1080p, and we were getting 70 to 80 frames per second in this title here, but sometimes it dipped below 70 into the 60s, but even at that you can't really tell, like it's really smooth still. So it just shows you that this system is capable of running something like this as well.
Mamma mia! I missed this! I can't wait to bring my son this season!
Grazie, Gaspare.
And like, who doesn't love Minecraft, right? So I thought I'll get Minecraft, but not only just Minecraft, I'll put shaders on it as well, which is how you can see it looking a little bit nicer with the water details and shadows and stuff like that. I mean, even here you can see it's really smooth, no lag. I was getting 150 to 160 frames per second here. The blocks loaded up really fast, and we had no problems getting the game running at all. Nice and smooth the whole way. So if you're a Minecraft person, this computer is ideal for you, especially if you like to mod it and put shaders on it as well. Very capable of running that, no problem at all. Now here's something for you if you're into your fast-paced car racing. Forza Horizon 5 on the highest settings, no settings spared at all here. 1080p on this machine is absolutely flawless. We were getting a stunning 200 frames per second on this title. Okay, now the game is really well optimized for sort of lower spec computers, so it runs absolutely spotless. Now, Fortnite was also running really well. It's a very CPU heavy game, Fortnite, but it ran absolutely no problem. We're on DirectX 12, not performance mode, and everything was nice and smooth. We're getting about 70 frames per second on the highest settings on RTX or whatever you call it in this game. We did have a little bit of textures not spawning, as you can see there on that wall. It's like a checkered sort of thing, but the textures eventually did kind of come into the game. I think it was because it was just the first time ever booting the game, and I don't know, it felt like the textures were just over time loading in. But overall, as you can see, it was nice and smooth, so 10 out of 10. Okay guys, thank you very much for watching today. Now this system will be available in store and online, and you can also get it through messages on Instagram as well. I'll pop the links below in the description, and also they'll be below on the screen here as well, so you can see that. There will also be 3 other configurations of computers that we will sell. This is the entry spec. We'll have a mid spec, a high spec, and also a ridiculous spec, which is literally no expense spared. Also, we can tweak the computer to your specifications, so if you'd like us to put a different component in it that you prefer, we can do that. It'll just maybe cost a little bit different. We can also build you a completely custom PC that you provide us with the spec, and we get the parts for you, and we can build it for you and give you a price for it as well. That's another option for you. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and come and see us in the shop. Come on, we're waiting. Take care.